Alright, so now we're going to start working on the grounding cables on this particular setup. So we're going to unhook the battery real fast. This is a cheap battery cutoff. We're not going to use it long term, but since the car kills the battery overnight, we'll try to keep the voltage in the battery instead of just letting it drain. Plus we don't know what it's draining to, so power, ground. Now we're going to remove the battery and remove the battery box. 6mm at the bottom. Plus the inside of this battery box is pretty gross. And we might eventually relocate the battery, but we're not worried about that at this time. Alright, so battery disconnected. Got a couple of cables down here. So right beside it is the coolant hose. Make sure you don't just rip it out of there and destroy the hose. That would be bad. Take your time with it. Got it out. Nice. Alright, so now you can see what I'm looking at. Here's one of the grounds right there. Another ground goes into the main harness off the battery harness, which probably goes to the engine, and then we get a secondary ground that goes to right here. I'll trace all this out. Should be the easiest thing to do. Get a broken connector down here. We'll have to figure out what that goes to. Looks like a fan wire. It's a lot of wiring down here. Look at that frayed wire there as well. So, and another thing for reliability is to check all the hoses. As they get older, they start getting prone to cracking and breaking, and last thing you're gonna do is be in the middle of a lap and it just blows a hose, and then you'll be spewing coolant everywhere. So what we're gonna do is we'll start tracing all the grounds, disconnecting them, cleaning them where it meets the body. So anywhere where we're bolting it to the chassis should be clean metal, and then we'll put some dielectric grease there to keep it from corroding afterwards. So we're back in the engine bay. I'm doing a quick look over while we're tracing some wires, and I'm seeing some hoses that go nowhere. No hose. Well, the hose is on it, just broken. So, and then we got a T-fitting here with venting atmosphere after the MAF, so we're getting bad data there. So it's one of those things when you buy a car, really dig into it, because you just never know what you're going to find. With this particular one, we're finding more, but at least we're finding it now. We're not digging in lightly and not realizing there's a bunch of problems. Because, you just never know a car until you really get on it and drive it and own it for a while and know all the nuances. Like here we go with another connector just laying there. So we might take this airbox out so we can do some more tracing. I think that will be the safest bet, because it's in the way. I want to see. Oh man, look at that. It's not even. Yeah. So yeah, great, awesome. So we'll dive into this some more. We'll probably maybe delete this, because as these get old, the accordion spot starts to rip and tear, and becomes a big problem. And removing a lot of this now will help figure out what all needs to be replaced, what I need to order for the next part of the process. If reliability is the name of the game, the more you know about the car, the easier it is to hone in on what needs to be done next. Alright, so we've been diving in. We pulled the intake off since it was very loose and started checking everything around. So we do have a broken wire to one of the fans. We have a sensor down there that's pretty well gone. Still got that vacuum sensor gone. So, and it still has the actuators for the intake runner plugged in, but no vacuum. So we'll have to fix. Being this car's a 2004 model, all the OEM grounds, we can't trust those anymore because I mean, corrosion, with the age of the car, there's just too many variables. So bare metal, new grounds. Here we just cleaned the ground connector, added a new ground to the intake manifold, cleaned that up. Got to clean all this up. So the plan for in here is we're going to reattach all this, get that vacuum leak plugged, work on all the other vacuum leaks. I got new coil packs on the way because we do not know the age of these, and we're having the dreaded hot start issue, which could be coil packs, could be low compression, but one test at a time. We'll go ahead and start cleaning all this up and change out these coil packs momentarily. We'll go ahead and throw those window wipers in while we're at it. Alright, we're back on it on the engine bay. We're going to use some plugs to get rid of some of the vacuum leaks that we're having. So you have a random T-fitting over here. Plug it off. That's plugged. You got some oil buildup on the inside of the intake tube. We'll clean that out later. We have this vacuum line right here that runs behind the intake manifold, behind the throttle body into the intake manifold. Let's go ahead and take it off completely. This is all just ran haphazardly. Alright, so everything's right here for this particular connector. It's not bolted on, it's not being used. We'll delete that hose off of here, get the twist off. But first, before we jump around, put that plug on the back so we don't forget it. Alright, that's plugged off. This sensor is now going to just see atmosphere. Twist it off. We're going to tuck that around somewhere nice once we get everything put back on. Get it tucked away. Alright, so vacuum lines all seem to be now closed off. We did get our new ignition coils, so we can go ahead and replace those. That'll be part of this maintenance process we're trying to knock out real fast. We have 2, 3, 4 bolts. We're going to require 10mm to take those out and those connectors. So we'll do a little time lapse to that so that way you don't have to watch all this. Alright, so we got our new coil pads in. Went ahead and tightened down the intake right where the accordion is. We're going to do the plugs and wires at a later date. Don't have them here yet, so we'll go ahead and keep bouncing around a little bit till we get it back to that point. So, get that done. We can now tackle this weird issue where we ever installed this alternator. We can double check the bolts, make sure they're tightened properly, and we can go ahead and remove that weird lock washer that's kind of mangled in there. You see it's just spinning. Alright. So we're going to dive in here a little bit. Well, at least that bolt's tight. So we don't need it super loose, just loose enough where we can move this tension a little bit. Get everything reset. Working like it should. Alright, so that's nice. Loose. Now we can tackle this part. Which it's not liking the fact that that washer's in the way. I'm angled up a little bit. Yeah, look at that. That's just gross. So what we can do, washer's not quite the right size. The other one was a hair too small. So let's grab a proper size washer so we can make sure that we don't have any more issues out of this, because that would be unfortunate to have the alternator belt come loose in the middle of a track day. Alright, our fresh washer. Reattach the bolt, the nut to the bolt. Alright. So now we can check for tension, make sure it's nice and tight. Now since rotaries live at red line, especially while drifting, we want to make sure this belt's nice and tight, no slippage. Try to be saying to yourself, why are you using a wrench? You'll get something a little bit quicker. I could, but it's also one of those things you like to feel that tension in multiple ways. So we're getting pretty close on the belt side. See, that's just too much deflection right there, so we still gotta get a little bit more. Almost there. That should be right where we need to be at. So now we can lock down this 12mm head on that nut, and then we can work on this 14. And we can call the alternator done. Now, the belts are not in bad shape. They look pretty decent. I could go ahead and replace them for reliability's sake. Or I could wait a little bit longer. Like I said, I'm not driving this until the MB Drift Spring Matsuri, so we still have two plus months to get everything lined up. So belts can be later on. That could be the final touches at the very end. So let's go ahead and tighten down that 14. And then that way, by the end of it, we can figure out what else we need to order. Because if y'all are like me, projects will keep getting deeper and deeper, and then it's easier to save it all up at the last bit. Place a big order than onesies and twosies, and then you're going to misplace the part if you don't install it instantly. And well, we've been there before. It is a nice happy accident when you find it later, but usually that's after you've done replaced it again. So, alright, so we're nice and tight. Alternator's done. Out of sight, out of mind now. Intake manifold's ready to go. So now we are going to do a trick that I saw from another YouTuber. His name is Rad Potential. He does RX-8s and a lot of other rotary things, mainly RX-7s and RX-8s, but his video series have been very helpful through this process of what to figure out first. So, that being said, we're going to do his mod for the air intake. Just pretty simple. Take a Sawzall, you'll cut right here on the edge of the box. That allows you to reuse this intake tube, and that way we can build off of that versus just pulling this sensor off and then buying an aluminum intake tube with the adapter piece. You know, we're trying to save as much sponge as we can. So, pretty simple process. Sawzall. And you're going to cut it along this flat piece right through here. Come back this side. All right, got it cut out, nice and dirty in there. And if you notice, there's excessive amount of oil on the inside of this intake tube. That is not good for when you want proper information going through that MAF sensor. So, to combat that, got some mass airflow sensor cleaner. We can blow all this stuff out. We'll move this air intake stuff out of the way. We give it a nice little spray down, just that way we get all of this stuff out of there. It's nice and clean. We're not going to start it anytime soon. We had a day or two before we start the car, so give it that plenty of time to dry out. So, thought process here is come off through here, we're out maybe this piece here, shorten this intake runner a little bit and put just a cone filter there for now. It's not going to be the final placement. I don't have the additional parts I want yet to extend it into the bumper. A lot of the intake tubes go through the bumper and right at the bottom, at the top of the grill, sorry. Just out of the range of the radiator. But for all intents and purposes of getting this car settled, I think that's going to be the best bet. That way we can finish testing around the house, driving up and down the driveway a few times, make sure we don't have any weird issues pop up. And then we can start diving in more once we find those issues. So let's go ahead and get back, to getting this car reliable. Alright, so we're going to throw it back together so we can move it, so we can finish up the rest of the parts for this reliability part of the video. Did some researching. This is for barometric pressure. We have all these vacuum lines taken care of. Got our ground lines nice, tight, cleaned up. Still want to replace this one eventually once we can trace it. So we can at least put some heat shrink on there so it won't look as bad and help with that corrosion resistance a little bit. So we're going to put the battery back in, crank her up, see how she runs within twitches that we have done so far. Still need to lock this in a spot where it's not going to bang around and make weird noise, and we'll take it there for now. So we'll throw it together, we'll drive it real fast and start working on everything else. So under the front end inspection shows that this connector belongs to these wires, which this connector is the ABS sensor for the passenger front. So we'll either replace just the wiring and depin it, repin it, or what I'm thinking is just go ahead and replace the connector itself, because it's seen better days. We're already here, might as well do it right. Got a little bit of coolant right there, which could be when we filled up everything. It was just a hair low, not really too low, but it could be from one of the random hoses, so we really need to dive in. I guess when we do the radiator, that'll be the most important time to go ahead and replace some of those hoses, because we're already there anyway. So you can see somebody decided to cut the exhaust off, so either A, order a header, or B, we'll clean up where it is, put a new flange on it, and then build off to the back of the car, which I think is going to be what I would want to do, just to keep the header out of the budget. But alright, so we're going to pull the spark plugs out. I've already pulled out the rears. I'm going to work on the fronts real fast, and I've already noticed something that might be causing our drivability issues. So let's go ahead and pull out these front two, and I'll show you what we're dealing with right now. First off, they don't want to come out easily. I don't want to damage the housing or the threads. So we can go nice and slow. Get a little bit better leverage on it. Tighten it up a little bit. Now, the rotary housings are labeled for trailing and leading plugs, which, if you're changing out your spark plugs and wires, should make it where you don't accidentally put the wrong one in the wrong spot, because your leading plug ignites most of the air fuel mixture, and then your trailing plug just finishes up the rest, because it's a very short window of combustion. And if you have them backwards, it can cause issues. Alright. So, this was in the top. Yeah, it's NGK. Got a trailing plug. In the top. And the leading plug's in the bottom. So I pulled the top, which is your trailing. which that one's fun. So in the rear housing, we had the leading plug in the trailing spot and the trailing plug in the leading spot. So I was expecting it to be the same in the front, but luckily it was not. And that might cause some runnability issues for the startup and everything like that. Not quite all the way out yet. Almost. A few more turns. Alright, now we're so pretty oily, got a lot of carbon buildup on there. The rear was a lot worse. So we'll go ahead and put new ones in. Judging by these threads, we'll put a little bit of anti-seize in there just to keep it easy to replace the next time. And the boots where sometimes get stuck on the insulation, this porcelain piece. So we'll put a little bit of dielectric grease right here, just a little bit. That way it'd be easier to take these spark plugs off later. So let's go ahead and put some new ones in, and we'll just time lapse this part for you. Alright, so we're going to work on the starter today, replacing it with the upgraded 14.2 starter that comes on the newer models. When we were testing what our RPM speed was during starting, it was down at 230, even with jump bots on it, which kind of slow, especially if you have a low compression engine. So the starter is held on by 2 bolts. Took this side out already. Use the 12mm to take off the power and the switch to the solenoid. Now we do have the battery off, so you do not have to worry about these being energized. So let's go ahead and finish taking off the starter. We really need an extension for this top one, just because it's in a tight spot. The top one also doesn't melt on the other side. Luckily, it's spinning pretty easily. As soon as I say that, it gets stuck. Let me grab my 14mm wrench. Alright. Alright, almost out. Old one is out. We'll look up that part number on that one to see if it was an upgraded model or not. I'm going to put this side in so it won't go anywhere. Alright. Up through the top. And then again, do it all over again. So pretty simple to swap this one out. You don't have to get too deep in the engine bay to do anything like this. Which makes it a little bit easier. If I was on a lift, been nice, but you know what? This isn't too bad. I could have used the electric ratchet, making this process a little bit easier, but I don't think there's a big need for it. Not the camera, which is great. Tell I don't do this very often. Position. I'm almost done. Not yet. Again. So we're gonna plug in signal from the switch. And then power from the battery. Tighten these all down. We should be all set. Nice and tight, fresh, and done. Alright, so new starter's installed. Still working on the exhaust system. We tried to fix the old manifold, but whoever cut it before used multiple cuts in the top, so we still have an exhaust leak. We found a good deal on a replacement header. Not OEM, but an aftermarket stainless header. So we're going to replace that here shortly.
you.